There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch, Michael by there.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Folks, this is an interesting story, of course, from across the pond, as we like to refer to you guys. But this isn't new territory. This isn't a new story. We could put different heads in this story, and we can see what occurred after a long period of investigation. You recognize that person on the screen there? Just got convicted of 2 rapes that occurred many, many years ago. There's Ashton Kutcher with him, sort of vouched for him, and may pay the piper for doing that in regards to reputation. Masterson, he was on a show called That 70s Show. And the allegations came many, many years earlier. How about here? Bill Cosby. No one wanted to believe the allegations against Bill Cosby. America's favorite comic, really, right? Just an icon of comedy. A well-respected man. The Cosby Show. He was everyone's dad, you know. And then these allegations came in, and they were too big and too powerful. Too many of them to ignore. Couldn't ignore them, right? And we didn't want to believe it. And what happened? They turned out to be true. And America's comedic icon convicted and wound up in prison. Tough to understand, right? And they all started out as allegations. How about this man? Harvey Weinstein, the most powerful man in Hollywood. There he is now walking into court. Allegations? Everyone in Hollywood knew he was a dirtbag for years and did nothing about it. They ignored it. Why? Because he was so powerful. He had so much money. The famous Oscar-winning actress Meryl Streep said, Harvey Weinstein is God. Really, really. He was even so arrogant that when he was interviewed by the detectives from Manhattan Special Victims, he threatened them. He threatened their careers. Imagine that. This millionaire movie mogul pervert actually threatened the detectives like he could have their jobs. He could have them transferred to the furthest reaches of where they would ever want to work. Unbelievable, right? But I'm just saying, though, power. That's that expression, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Elon Musk right now is defending Russel Brand, that these are mere allegations. And again, we're going to get into this, and we're not going to just assume the allegations are correct, but we wanted to give a little history to these things. Remember Ronan Farrow? Ronan Farrow is the son of Mia Farrow, an outstanding journalist. Wrote a story, broke the story on Harvey Weinstein, and he was working for NBC. NBC refused to allow him to put it out. So he offered it to the New York Magazine, which blew the story wide open, and the rest is history. So again, there is power in these things, and power of the press. And again, power of allegations. I'm not saying in the case of Russel Brand, and we're going to discuss it more in depth, that it's true. I'm just showing you some cases where we knew and know it was true. How about this man? Oh my God, remember him? Jeffrey Epstein, Epstein Island, Ghislaine Maxwell. Some of the richest, most powerful people went to Epstein pedophile island. And have they ever been held accountable for that? Has anyone? If you want to believe it, Jeffrey Epstein killed himself in the tombs. That's the holding cells in Manhattan criminal courts. Has anyone? Again, remember that expression, absolute power corrupts absolutely? No one has ever been. Well, Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison now. She paid the piper. There's Epstein Island. There's his island, which all the top movers and shakers in this world went and visited. There's a list. Where is that list? I want to know what that list is. Why isn't it published? Why isn't people that went there been held accountable for that? We're going to discuss some of these issues in regards to Russel Brand. But first tonight, before we do a deep dive into the Russel Brand story, I'm going to invite my co-host tonight, retired NYPD Sergeant, Professor, law degree, Professor Michael Geary. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, Billy, thank you for having me on. Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
Mike, I covered a lot of things in my opening monologue, but you can see the parallels we could draw from this case to some of those other cases I just mentioned. Who would have ever thought that Bill Cosby would be convicted of rape?
Yeah. I mean, I remember years ago watching his show, I Spy, with Robert Culp. When I was a little kid, I thought he was one of the coolest guys in the world. And he had albums, and he had Fat Albert. He had the show he played Dr. Huxtable. I mean, he was everybody's favorite comedian, and he was a household name. He was an American institution. And how could any of these things be true? That doesn't seem right. And yet it was.
Yeah, and Mike, in a picture I put up of Danny Masterson.
Right?
I think the allegations were over 10 years old.
Yes, they've been around for a while.
And he, in fact, there he is next to Ashton Kutcher, who's vouching for Danny Masterson, really will have an adverse effect on his career, at least in the short term. You want to speak upon that, Mike, about these old allegations and the fact that after they were over 10 years old, I believe, and he got convicted, didn't he?
Yeah, they date back to the very beginnings of that 70s show. If anybody remembers it, it's about kids growing up in like Madison, Wisconsin. It's just like a little situation comedy, and it had the music, the clothing, the cars, all kinds of stuff from the 70s, and it was very well done. My kids enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, looking at the music and everything. And Masterson was one of the integral players in it, in the show. And it was like a little comedy troupe of guys with Ashton Kutcher. And it was a terrific show, lighthearted, good stuff, good acting, good writing. And, it appeared when you look back that that show lasted about 8 years. It had a good long run. But early on in the show's run, when they were the whole troupe with Ashton Kutcher and Mr. Masterson, we were getting very famous and being invited to all the parties. They started living the nice, great, Hollywood actor success life. And they started to there was a few allegations early on. They didn't go anywhere. They might have gone to the police. I'm not sure if they went to the newspaper, they went to the police, but there was always those sort of whispers, and then they died out. And then after the show ended, they were resurrected again. And just like 2 months ago, not even, they had that trial. And 2 months ago, he was convicted. He's doing, I think, at least 25 years to life for 2 or 3 convictions. He was accused of a number of them, and he was found guilty on at least 2, maybe 3 of them. So he's looking at possibly maybe the remainder of his life behind bars for things that allegedly happened back in the late 1990s, early 2000s. So that just goes to show you that Mr. Brand, in this case, we'll be talking about, these are serious allegations. They can't be brushed off. You don't know where these are going to go. We can see Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby. These things can take on a life of their own. And if they get picked up by a prosecutor and investigated, that they may have disastrous consequences for that person, no matter, their stature, their status, their wealth, in their connections.
Absolutely. Let's get right to Russell Brand. According to The Guardian, how did the Russell Brand story unfold? An investigation by the Sunday Times and Dispatches accused Russell Brand of rape and sexual assault, leaving the entertainer and the companies that employed him facing serious questions. Allegations that Russell Brand raped and sexually assaulted several women at the height of his career have thrown the entertainment industry into crisis. Today, politicians of all stripes are expected to demand explanations from TV executives about what they knew and when. In a detailed investigation by the Sunday Times, the Times, and Channel 4, these are all British papers, 5 women accused Brand of abusive and predatory behavior, including rape, sexual assault, and emotional abuse between 2006 and 2013. Brand denies the allegations and said his relationships were always consensual. James Cleverly, the foreign secretary, said the entertainment industry has questions to answer over the allegations, and he said that society must be better at listening to the voices of the relatively powerless. Because we, I think, collectively have missed opportunities to do the right thing and intervene much, much earlier, he told BBC One Sunday with Laura Kunsberg. I think there's some real challenges where you have these very, very acute differentials in power. The police, the BBC, and Channel 4, which both employed Brand on their networks at the time, have begun inquiries into the allegations against Brand. Right now, of course, these are allegations,
That's right.
And I would like to say, and we must say this because we say it in every case that we cover, whether it's a murder case, whether it's a rape, whatever it is, that the defendant is innocent until proven guilty. That is our court system. However, in this instance, it seems like many things have occurred to Russell Brand that have somehow made him look guilty before he's had a chance to answer these allegations. Mike.
Yeah, Billy. The thing with the entertainment industry in Britain, I'm sure it's just like ours. You have power brokers and things like that, and they have their favorites. And this seems to be an investigation. I'm not sure if that's the proper term for it. Some sort of a news investigation by a company, and they did a documentary. The names of the ladies who are making these accusations against Brand have not been revealed. The only one whose name was revealed happened to be a lady named Helen Berger, who was Russell Brand's personal assistant from years ago. She did not have a lot of nice things to say about Russell Brand. But, we're not going to move forward with this case and bring it to court. All the tape, all the interviews, all the notes by the reporter should be turned over to a special victims unit in the London Police Department, and that sort of thing, wherever these were allegedly to have occurred, and let them now do a real criminal investigation, like you would do in the New York City Police Department, and find out, separate the wheat from the chaff. So what is real, what is exaggerated, what is truth, what is not truth, and then go from that point forward after an investigation to see if a prosecutor would take it and bring charges against Russell Brand. I mean, that's how it should be done. Everyone who is accused of a crime is not always guilty. An accusation is clearly just an accusation. Let the investigation go on with the proper police procedures and see where the information and the evidence leads us. If these charges seem to be viable, then he may be charged. But if not, then we should be going looking towards, there'll probably be a civil case maybe also involved. But you don't want to see, and as a lawyer and as a cop, and you did many of these investigations, you do not want to see the person being tried in the media. The media is not an arbiter of truth. The media is an arbiter of trying to get clicks, trying to sell papers, trying to get ratings. And so sometimes they tend to may exaggerate. So you have to be very, very careful what is actually truthful, that can be proved, and what it may be an allegation, even if it's legit. But if it can't be proven, it's not going to make it into court. So this is just the beginning of the ordeal that we're going to go through, and Mr. Brand is going to be in the eyesight of the police and the prosecutors, and we'll see where it goes. But it's going to be a while, and I think everyone should just step back and say, let the special victims officers and detectives do their job and see where this leads us.
Absolutely. From across the pond, Andy, the Gabby Cabby, good buddy of Police Off the Cuff. Andy, I know you've been covering this. The police have only just started investigating some issues with Brand. Initially, a lot of this was driven by the press, who already decided his guilt. I believe in due process. It needs to be allowed. Andy, the Gabby Cabby, 100%. We believe in justice. We believe in absolutely in due process. Angel D, I actually know someone who was approached by Rusty Rockets back early 90s and said she was absolutely full of, won't take no for an answer. In my opinion, I believe these victim stories, just my opinion. Angel, that's, everyone has an opinion. Everyone wants to get to the truth. However, we have to give each person due process. And, Andy, I wanted to, this is an important thing, an important point that you just brought up. The timing with the new online safety bill in the UK makes, I think that's what you meant, makes for a very interesting timing. Yes, something, we live in this internet world we live in, this digital world where news is coming at you 24/7. That all kinds of different things are thrown at you. You don't know what's true, what's false. And in fact, as you just said, the online safety bill, it reminds me of something that our government tried to do when they tried to establish a disinformation bureau. And when you think of how ridiculous that is, who's going to decide what's disinformation? And how do we know that the people on that board aren't liars themselves? And isn't truth? I mean, truth is truth, but certain things like silencing people for opinions, even when you hear things like hate speech, isn't it better to let someone say what they're going to say and then show what a buffoon they are for saying it, rather than shutting them up? So censorship is a very, very scary thing. And Andy, the Gabby Cabby, I'm going to play a little bit of this. And this was started in England just recently. And I don't know if it will have a life, because this stuff is really crazy. When the government tries to censor people to an online safety bill gets the green light in England.
The dangerous implications of this bill.
Well, the entirety of the bill is pretty bad,
right?
Because it's in principle, it's founded upon the idea that the public square of the online world should be controlled primarily by government, but by big tech.
Yes. And
that social media Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, should have powers to be able to, one, prevent what we see and control what it is that's the kind of content that's put out. It's done in terms of what's considered illegal. So part of that is kind of no-brainers, child pornography, extreme violence, terrorism, but also linked into what's considered illegal is sort of hate crime, whatever that means.
Yes.
Abuse, whatever that means, coercion, controlling behavior, whatever that means. And so essentially what it's doing is setting up a relationship between the public and the internet, which is incredibly censored, incredibly controlled. And in a new world where, particularly post-pandemic, a lot of political discourse happens online.
Yes.
A lot of organizing of people's private lives happens online. It's a really, really big problem.
Well, the NSPCC talks about child safety and that kind of thing. You mentioned the example of child pornography and even things like death threats and that kind of thing. Those are already illegal. And those are things that are already routinely removed by social media. It's not as though Twitter is awash with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But what they're conflating with this online safety bill is things that people, they've used the term legal but harmful speech, things that are psychologically or emotionally distressing.
Yeah.
That's the worry, isn't it, here?
Yeah, and they specifically use the term sort of psychological harm and hate that causes psychological harm, which is interesting because it's sort of, there's harm and then there's psychological harm. The emphasis on mental health in this bill is quite explicit in a way that sort of takes for granted the idea that it's a given that if people interact with what they call hateful content, there will be psychological harm. So it's completely denying any sort of robustness.
Mike, who is to decide what psychological harm is on the internet? Who is to decide, like, your feelings? What you feel? My feelings get hurt sometimes. That's too bad. You know what I mean? And no one should be able to censor the speech of someone who may have hurt my feelings. I mean, that's a slippery slope. That is a scary thing. So to come full circle, Russel Brand had 6.61 million subscribers on YouTube. And when these allegations came forth, he was demonetized immediately. That's a lot of cabbage, 6.61 million subscribers on YouTube. So in essence, he was censored based on allegations. And now this new bill, the online safety bill, that also is looking on as, an internet, the government to silence and to censor, like we almost had with our government with the, that was the Disinformation Bureau. I don't, so who runs the Disinformation Bureau?
Right.
That's what I want to know. Which party runs the Disinformation? Because I will guarantee you their truths will be told and the truth from the other side will never get told.
Right. Yeah, the thing with England, with this, with Russel Brand, is that they don't have a Bill of Rights like we have attached to our Constitution, and the First Amendment we believe is the most important one, the most powerful one, the ability to challenge the government, address grievances, get together and speak. Our whole idea behind democracy is robust free speech. We cannot exchange ideas if we all have to be so politically correct that we're woke and that we can't even and then one person will try to stop another person from using certain words that may cause psychological harm or they're expressive of microaggressions. We cannot have that sort of thing because we really can't then talk about things that we need to talk about in this country. We have tons of issues. And so we saw this when the FBI went to Facebook and said there's right before the 2020 election with the laptop saying, there's going to be something coming along and just want to let you know, it smells like Russian disinformation to us. That sort of thing. Bury it with the algorithm so that nobody could find the information. Bury it. So the government is using a third party like a Twitter, like Facebook, things like that, as their own filter. They're doing the dirty work for the government. They're the ones who are actually doing the censoring at the bidding of the party that's in charge. So whatever the truth is going to be whoever occupies the president's office. If it's a Democrat, then their truths are the ones that are going to be truth, and everything that's criticism is going to be disinformation and dangerous to people's mental health and physical health. We saw this over the criticisms that were later found to be absolutely accurate about the effectiveness of vaccine mandates and lockdowns and things like that. It was really pathetic. We should learn from these things. And in America, with the Disinformation Bureau, that was housed under the Department of Homeland Security. And so when you hear that, it's not just, well, we want people to, be more honest in the way they talk. No, you were looking at this and saying, they're saying that criticisms of the government that the government finds to be offensive and labels as disinformation is absolutely a national security risk. So if you say something that may later turn out to be true, like with vaccines and things like that, the government may, who knows, prosecute you for violating, any sort of regulations on speech. It's a real slippery slope. That's not what our democracy.
Our founding fathers meant.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking in my book here, and I was looking at just a quick quote from a case called West Virginia versus Barnett. This is back in 1943. The United States Supreme Court said, if there is any fixed star in our constitutional constellation, it is that no government official, high or low, can prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, or other matters of opinion. That there is no government orthodoxy. There are some truths, like, there is gravity, we know physics, we know mathematics, but so many other things about politics, economics, religion, the border. There are some things that are factually true, but then there's also a lot of opinion about, should we support the war in Ukraine, and what do we do about our national security and our public health system.
Mike, if I could just interrupt you for a second. One of the worst things these days is that we used to be able to have different opinions and different political views and still get along with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now it seems that if you have a different opinion than someone else, they immediately write you off as I want nothing to do with that person. And that's what freedom of speech is about. That's what political opinion is about. And I think it's scary and dangerous. Bella Finn, he was a vaccine COVID hater and his into all them conspiracy theories. He's always talking about his different actions. Yes, but I mean, that's, again, I think Joe Rogan, if any of you guys listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, he came out, I think that coming out against the vaccine in 2020 was suicide, basically, for your career. They tried to cancel Joe Rogan too, but he was so big and so powerful they couldn't. Isn't that great? He said, I have FU money. That's why they couldn't cancel him. I want to play a little of this. So some of you folks maybe that don't know who Russel Brand is, let's play a little bit of him right here. We'll see who he is.
I like to have it off, right? As sort of, right? Yeah, why not? Yeah, let's cheer the idea of sex.
Sex, the love of it, the dogged, unashamed pursuit of it, Russel Brand's thing.
I'm really crap at this, aren't I?
You're lovely, you're fine. Just go with it. Don't try and fight it. I have to say that every day.
The core of his act, an act which made him one of Britain's best-known comedians and actors.
What I do is I make absolutely sure that it is a woman, then go for it.
It saw him become the host of Channel 4's Big Brother.
Tonight,
I like to have it off, right? Woman, then go for it.
It saw him become the host of Channel 4's Big Brother spin-off.
Welcome to Big Brother's E-Forum.
One of the stars of BBC Radio. It even took him to Hollywood. Now tonight, off stage, it sees him accused of rape, sexual assault, controlling and abusive behaviour, uncovered in a major investigation by Channel 4 Dispatches, The Times and The Sunday Times.
He's grabbing at my underwear, pulling it to the side. I'm telling him to get off me, and he won't get off. Like holding me up against the wall, pushing himself in me.
It's based on the testimony of 5 women who agreed to share their stories. Actors have been used in some cases, and in others, voices have been changed. The allegations are from the early noughties until 2013. Brand's risque stand-up routine, a huge success on the comedy circuit. He then got his big break on television, joining Channel 4's Big Brother spin-off show.
Why, hello there!
The programme was a huge moneymaker for production company Endemol and critical to the channel's existence. Series 5 generating £45 million in advertising revenue alone. Brand became the star of the spin-off debate show, Big Brother's E-Forum. Within weeks of starting the job, Brand was focusing his attention on a new young runner.
It was only one of my first jobs. I was a runner. There was a real sense for me of being the baby and wanting to make an impression on everybody. I think I must have gone to see what he wanted for lunch, and he saw that it was me, and he turned around towards me. I wasn't incredibly close to him, but I saw that he had his penis out of his shorts or trousers, and it was in his hands. I wasn't going to tell anyone what he'd done because I didn't want to lose my job.
They later began a consensual sexual relationship.
With hindsight, and now as an older woman, I can say with clarity that, you know, I felt like I was groomed for sex.
Anarchy in the Big Brother house.
But it's not just testimony from the women themselves. Other junior Endemol crew members who worked with Brand on other shows agreed to tell their stories too.
Russell was pointing out women that he found attractive in the audience and then getting the runners to get their details so that they could meet up after the show. It felt like we were essentially taking lambs into slaughter.
Junior crew members on Big Brother's E-Forum say they made complaints about his behaviour.
I don't know whether that complaint went any higher than our production management team. It was definitely met with, okay, well, that's not okay. I don't know if anybody spoke to Russell. The behaviour didn't stop.
Alice was just 16 in 2006 when she first met Russel Brand.
He saw me and he'd asked what my business was there. I'd just been to Topshop. He took the shopping bags from my hands and picked a dress out and he said, okay, you're going to wear that on a date with me.
For Alice, Russel Brand, a self-proclaimed sex addict, was the first man she had had sex with.
When everything was over, one of his friends came round to the house. They both drove me to the tube station. He reached his hand behind the car seat and was holding my hand behind the seat like my mum does when she's in the car. And it made me feel like, I felt very small. I felt like a little kid.
Alice describes being sexually assaulted.
I was pushing him away, and he wasn't backing off at all. And so I ended up having to punch him really hard in the stomach to get him off. And then he fell backwards. And I was crying. And he said, oh, I only want to see your mascara run anyway.
From Channel 4, Brand moved to the BBC, bringing his controversial, no-holds-barred broadcasting style to Radio 2. In 2008, Brand was forced to quit over an inappropriate prank call, but he was ready to take advantage of new opportunities in Hollywood. Nadia met Brand at a party and subsequently had consensual sex with him. On another occasion, she alleges, he raped her.
I was out late and he happened to call me and say, I've had a really bad day, please come over. And at first I said, no, I'm not going, it's late. And he's like, please come, just come and cuddle with me. So then I gave in and I'm like, okay. He pushed me up against a wall. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I have a friend here and I want you to come into the bedroom. I'm like, no, that's not happening. We're not doing that. And I tried to get away from him. And at this point, he's grabbing at my underwear, pulling it to the side. I'm telling him to get off me and he won't get off. And he has that glazed look in his eye again.
Now these allegations, these are recreations by actors right now. And what I would say to these allegations is, if these really occurred and the people that are the complainants want to move forward, then they should be telling these stories. I don't mean to say story as if it's not true. They should be telling about these events to the police, not to journalists, because it appears, I see a lot of people in the chat talking that they think that somehow this is retaliation for him. He covers, he speaks out a lot against the establishment. Could that anger the mainstream media in England? And is this retaliation, or are these allegations really true? And if that's the case, then there's 5 people alleging, or according to the press, 5 people alleging these sexual crimes. Then shouldn't they be going again to the police and reporting these allegations?
Yeah, Billy, if these are actual allegations that people are serious about making and seeing in, going to court and getting their justice, they got to go to the police. They've got to go to the police and give them all the information they have, text messages, any letters, anything, rack their brains out for all of the information that they have, to dates, times, locations, what happened, what was said, all of these things. And then, there's got to be a real investigation. What comes out very clearly is that Russel Brand was a pig, and he was living that pig lifestyle back, 20 years ago. He had a lot of money, a lot of fame, a lot of connections, a lot of groupies, a lot of people want to be part of him, and he was taking full advantage of it. And if this is only, you just decide that, you just want to dirty him up and you're not going to go to the police, then that's not fair. That's not fair to sit there and make these allegations. And because once they're out there, many people will believe an allegation, even if there isn't anything objective there to back it up that would be uncovered in a police investigation. This is where it gets to the point where you got to make a decision as an accuser. If this is absolutely serious, that you feel that you've been raped, then you got to go to the police and follow through on it to the very end. Because the system has to be fair to both the accuser and the accused.
100%. Alien Barbie 51. Journalists sought out the victims, from my understanding. Also, journalists also helped take down Weinstein. Yes, I mentioned at the outset of the show that an investigative journalist by the name of Ronan Farrow wrote the investigative expose, and he was working for NBC at the time, and because of the power of Harvey Weinstein, they backed off and wouldn't publish the story or broadcast the story. So he went to the New Yorker magazine, who published it, and we all know what happened to Harvey Weinstein post that article. That was the article that was the catalyst to uncovering all the dirt on Harvey Weinstein over a 20 or 30 year period. And there was lots of dirt. However, he was so powerful that people were afraid of him in that industry. Meryl Streep was quoted as saying, Harvey Weinstein is God. So there's an Oscar-winning actress that is making that statement. So who do you think? You think an up-and-coming actor or actress is going to go after Harvey Weinstein? He controls who gets the roles in the movies. This is the CEO of YouTube.
Interview with the CEO of YouTube. He talked about a number of things, including his decision to block Russel Brand from collecting ad money from his YouTube videos. The move was made after 4 women accused Brand of sexual assault, allegations he denies. We asked Brand to respond to YouTube's decision in the latest allegations, but we have not heard back. Here's part of Tony's conversation with YouTube CEO Neil Mohan.
We have a creator responsibility guidelines policy where if creators have off-platform behavior or there's off-platform news that could be damaging to the broader creator ecosystem, you can be suspended from our monetization program. It's impacted a number of creators and personalities on the platform in the past, and that's what played out in this particular case around the serious allegation.
It's an accusation. It's not a police charge. It's not a legal decision. How do you decide when to step in before the whole due process has happened?
We endeavor to apply those rules equally across our entire creator ecosystem, not playing favorites, having them apply to the content, the behavior, as opposed to who the person is.
Folks, I saw something in the chat. Someone said, oh, I didn't think police off the cuff would endorse rape culture. That's not what we're doing.
No, not at
What
all.
we're doing is we're trying to give a fair and balanced report on this. I think Mike said that, Russel Brand was basically an out of control actor or comic that really got away with a lot of things. However, he still deserves due process. We can't just destroy his life over allegations. And again, if these allegations are true, they need to go to the police, not to journalists, because the police are the arbiter of whether a crime was committed or not, and whether the complainants want to go forward with charges. So to say we are defending rape, we are not defending rape culture. We're trying to give a balanced report here. And please don't ever infer that we would ever protect rape culture. Mike.
Yeah, I have 3 daughters, and there's no way that I would defend, anyone and who would be a suspected rapist. All I'm saying is that you have to be very careful. These charges date back over a decade, and so you got to wonder what has happened in between them happening and now this is coming to light. What has gone on, and did they go to the police? I'm not sure if they actually even went to the police, because if you go to the police, that's where you're going to get justice, because then they can actually charge the person that you're accusing of a very serious crime like rape or sexual abuse or something like that. To go to a journalist and have your name not be made public, to me, it kind of undercuts the the credibility, because you should be going to the police. If you are actually violated, you should go to the police. Going to a tabloid, that doesn't seem like you're doing it to get to have that person punished criminally. If Russel Brand is a rapist, he should be punished like Mr. Masterson and a lot of other people. He could be a pig, and we all know he probably was a pig back in those days, but it doesn't make him a rapist. We need some sort of evidence. We need some sort of police investigation. We need some sort of objective indications that what you say happened actually did happen. Times, dates, locations, anyone that you talk to, anything that you said afterwards, anybody that could back up and support your credibility. That's what we're looking for. That's being fair to everyone both as an accuser and as an accused. Everyone has the right to have their due process. And so therefore we're advocating for due process for everyone, and we're not going to jump on an emotional bandwagon roller coaster and say, oh my goodness, an allegation is proof. No, we had the Salem witch trials in 1692 where girls were accused of being witches and then hanged, with on no evidence whatsoever. We don't do that in this country.
100% we don't do that. Folks, I want to read something from the chat. Oh no, not that one. That wasn't the one I was looking for. There was a very good. There we go. No, that's not. I keep clicking on the wrong one, but there it is. Cynthia Caldwell. By not going to the police and to the media tells me it's nothing but a hit job to destroy him, because he has so many millions of followers, and he's speaking truth and exposing their evil doings. Cynthia, that's your take on this, and I respect your take. We can't afford to just take a position like that. We have to take both sides. Criminy, if true, they let a rapist walk the earth free to rape again for more than a decade. Well, we don't know if it's true yet until it's investigated, and it needs to be investigated, because if there's 5 people making allegations, then some of it is true, right? If not all of it. And if it is true and crosses the line into criminality, then the person that's being accused needs to be arrested. But the person also needs to have due process and not have his life destroyed on allegations. Jana Lucky, she already explained that she didn't feel taken seriously by police, saying she doesn't want due process is a damn lie. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime or true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. I see a lot of new people in here from across the pond. Subscribe to us. If you're new, put a 2 in the chat. And if you're an old veteran, just put a 1 in the chat. And folks, if you want to support this show, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels. And we also have a YouTube channel membership. You see the folks in the green font. They're part of our channel memberships. They are our fans, our subscribers, and our friends. And we really, really appreciate every single one of them. I want to play an interview with a retired British police detective to see. Mike, let's talk a little bit about the statute of limitations. Is there a statute of limitations on these crimes, these type of crimes?
Yeah, Billy, almost all crimes have statute of limitations. Homicide doesn't. I know in New York they've increased the statute of limitations on felonies like rapes and things like that. I'm not sure how if it's they did it a couple of years ago. I know for civil suits you can bring them like pretty much any time. 20 years later, I'm not so sure if, except for rape 1, I think the most serious form of rape. I think the statute of limitation is now been lifted in New York, but there's also civil litigation statutes of limitation. It's very, very difficult to prosecute or to defend these cases, after so long a period of time. I was looking in the chat and someone said, what's proof? How do you prove something that occurred? Well, that's the difficult part after all these years. Was there a text message? Was there something written, a note? Was there a spontaneous statement made by one person to another that they could remember and reiterate to the police and swear to in a court of law? Is there something that Russel Brand said? I think at one point, one of the allegations, he said he was sorry afterwards, and he wrote like a note. If that note still exists, because saying you're sorry shows some sort of lack of some sort of positive understanding that what you did was wrong. So it makes it really difficult. And sure, I could understand people having a grave difficulty coming forward because they don't think that they're going to be believed. And that's sad, but that's a fact of life that, special victims detectives have to deal with, and that we have to deal with in the criminal justice system. But we have seen a number of high profile, successful prosecutions of people like Danny Masterson, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, and things like that. It's going to take a while, but the justice system, unfortunately, does move slow. And in this case, it's going to move even slower because of the time. But we have to have a system where we vet these cases through the prosecution, we present them in court, and a jury is going to decide whether or not the person has been found guilty or not, or they're going to acquit the person. It's a long, difficult process. We all know that. You've spoken to many, victims of different crimes and witnesses that don't really want to come forward. And it's not easy. Nobody's saying it's easy. And the length of time just makes it doubly difficult because of the fact that you must, under New York state law, Section 60 of New York's criminal procedure law, a person cannot be convicted solely on testimony from a witness or from a co-defendant or from their own confession. There has to be some other objective piece of evidence that would corroborate the statements. So that's what makes it very difficult. Just saying something happened is one thing, saying something happened, but also having just some other piece of evidence to corroborate what you're saying, that would make all the difference in the world between a no prosecution and maybe a successful prosecution.
Wow. Andy the Gabby Cabby, in cases involving personal injury, including sexual abuse and sexual assault cases, court proceedings must be commenced within 3 years from the date of knowledge or 3 years from the claimant's 18th. I mean, their 18th birthday. Is that what you mean, Andy? What if he's really a different person now? What if he atoned for his previous behavior? Interesting. Well, Angel, that really means nothing in regards to if it is decided that there was a criminal act. He can be as sorry as he wants. Prisons are filled with sorrowful people, but they still get punished for what they did.
There needs to be obviously a conviction here. It can't be guilty until proven innocent, because obviously then we're just sort of in the witch burning phase here, which just being declared a witch is enough to make you a witch and be burnt. Anyone could be accused at any time of false charges, and we can't be destroying their lives on the basis of potentially false accusations.
So that was Elon Musk giving his opinion there. I think that many people disagree with the fact that he was so quickly stripped of everything, of his YouTube channel. Advertisers were running for the hills. His reputation, of course, is totally destroyed. I don't know. I don't think we really like that in this country. And I know England is a little different than the United States, but I think we do look upon due process as something that is your right. And when someone gets eviscerated in the court of public opinion, and journalists can destroy people, we've seen that before, but they also do what we all like journalists to do, and that's shine a spotlight on things. So they make things that are secretive, they make them evident, and they are able to take the powerful down when necessary, i.e. Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein was so powerful that everyone in Hollywood was afraid to take down this pathetic old man. That's what he looks like right now, a pathetic old man. And not was he convicted of multiple charges in New York, but he's facing more charges in California. So the powerful can be taken down, but it takes extreme effort, extreme perseverance through the complainants.
Undermine the news in all its corruption.
In the world of Russel Brand, it's where he makes a lot of his money, as millions watch. But today, amid rape and sexual assault allegations, YouTube stopped the comedian from monetizing ads, as the BBC said they'd removed some Russel Brand content from their platforms and promised to review the presenter's time at the corporation.
He never did anything that wasn't consensual with me.
Georgina Bailey will never forget Russel Brand and Jonathan Ross's stint at Radio 2. She was the woman at the centre of the so-called Saxgate scandal. The pair left a now infamous prank voicemail on her grandfather's phone, detailing Brand's sexual encounters with Georgina.
Oh, hello, Andrew Sachs. This is Russel Brand. I'm a great appreciator of your work.
What impact did all of that have on you at the time?
It was a very, very dark time. I was full of shame and self-hatred, and victim blaming was like the main consequence. Just kind of fell into like a booze and drugs lifestyle, and yeah, that was pretty dark. I'm lucky to be alive, to be honest.
How did you feel towards Russel Brand at the time?
I just felt like, oh well, there's no point in saying anything about this because he's going to get away with it because he's Russel Brand.
The scandal prompted thousands of complaints and saw Brand resign from the BBC and later apologise.
Please, I must go to the car.
Did you feel that you were shamed at the time as the woman in that whole situation?
I was sort of chewed up and spat out in a way, and I wish that I had never said a word. This brings up the whole massive issue of slut shamings. It's still bullying what they did.
Do you think there's something about the noughties, that specific culture, you know, lads magazines were doing a booming trade? How much do you think that played into and in some ways enabled men like Russel Brand?
I completely agree with everything you just said. It was totally fine to talk about my appearance and what I did in the bedroom. You know, it's so gross. And they did enable Shagger of the Year. What's that for? Like, why invent that award? It's so weird.
And yet you were the victim in that situation.
I mean, I was the scapegoat for sure, because it's really easy to put a scarlet letter on a woman. It's been happening all through history.
While several women have now come forward to claim the comedian abused them, Georgina says her relationship with Brand was always consensual.
Do you recognise the Russel Brand that you knew?
Not at all. I don't. But that's not to say that it's not true, because I don't know. Nobody will know unless they were in that room.
Do you think they were brave to come forth, these women?
Of course they were. They were so brave, because they're going up against a mighty power there. You know, but it's a different time now. If it was 2008 still, they would have just been brushed under the carpet. And it's just, that's not acceptable anymore. And I'm so grateful for that.
In the past few years, Georgina says several women have contacted her, claiming Brand abused them.
These girls started to contact me through social media, and I just really, really felt for them, but I wasn't going to join in with it because it's not my experience.
We should say we haven't been able to verify these claims ourselves, and ahead of Saturday's documentary airing, Brand strenuously denied abuse allegations.
That I absolutely refute.
On that apology video today, the Commons Culture Committee wrote to TikTok with concerns that Brand may be able to profit from it, while MPs said a major inquiry into what they called open secrets in the TV industry could be coming in days, as the BBC launched their own internal review today.
We'll look at any complaints made about Russel Brand's conduct during his time, what was known at the time, what was done. So full transparency, we're going to dig into anything that we've got there. That the review will also look at the position regarding any cars used by the BBC at that time.
Georgina says years after the Saxgate scandal, Brand apologised again in person and paid for her rehab treatment.
He sent me to rehab, which probably helped save my life. He looked me in the eyes and I felt like every word was genuine, and I accepted it. And he explained that he has 2 daughters. And I think that's really helped him grow and change.
Today, Russel Brand resigned from his role as a director of 2 businesses, according to Companies House, as his daily broadcasts have gone quiet.
You know, Mike, I have a problem in a way with corporations making decisions on whether or not their behavior is gone past what they consider moral or whatever, because corporations aren't moral themselves for the most part. So they're going to silence this person again. And our big thing, and of course in this country, we say without due process, because we believe that everyone should get due process. And if these allegations, and if there are 5 women, we don't know. These are 5 people or 5 that the broadcast media journalists are pointing out, these folks that are making allegations. Do we know they exist? Do we know what they are saying? Has there been a proper investigation? Look, journalists outed Harvey Weinstein. In a big part, journalists outed Bill Cosby, So they do have a part in it. They do shine a light on things that might be covered up otherwise. And it's sort of a shame, but it happens to be true. Like Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, Epstein Island. That still has not, to my satisfaction, that case has never, ever been resolved and never, ever will, because the rich and the powerful have the money to keep that quiet. But in the same vein, to play, and of course, playing devil's advocate, does Russell Brand deserve to be silenced? Does his life deserve to be ripped to shreds? Does he deserve all the things that have occurred to him without criminal charges being drawn up against him? Without, part of our system, as you know, is to be able to confront the people that make allegations against you. And someone said in the chat before, how can he prove his innocence? That's not his job to do that. The job of the prosecution is to prove his guilt. He does not, and that's why the adversarial system, it's much harder to prove innocence than it is to prove someone guilt. So so they don't have to prove they're innocent. The prosecution has to prove that he's guilty. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, Billy, this is the whole the difficulty, the grave difficulties when you're dealing with an allegation that dates back, maybe 15 to 20 years. He does not have to prove his innocence under our system of law. It's up to the prosecution to prove each and every element of the crime occurred and to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, which is very high. But in the court of public opinion, I think Russell Brand would really want to prove his innocence, even if the charges are never brought criminally. I think for his own career and his own name and his own brand, it's not tongue in cheek, I'm saying his own actual brand, I think that he would want to try and prove innocence, and you really can't prove something that didn't occur, in 2003 or 2012. Yet he was a pig and he did a lot of things, and a lot of people may have done things in the past. Musicians, politicians, people in power, CEOs, and they got away with it. And, but it may not have, and it may have been piggy, but it may not have actually been a criminal act. So therefore, that's why you need the police to come in and say, yes, we believe this is a criminal act. Have the prosecution say, yes, we believe this is a criminal act. So the fact that he's, like, as that lady said, he's different than he was before. Well, true, because he's 20 years older, 20 years more mature. He's straightened. He's gotten probably off the alcohol and things like that, and he's on to new and different ventures. But back in the day, you still have to answer for what you did if it was, in fact, a criminal act. And only the police and the prosecutors are going to be able to determine that. The idea of, as Elon Musk said, where the allegation is proof. We're back to the days of witches and the Salem witch trials. It's terrible, but it's going to be a struggle for both sides to try to figure out what happened in this case. And it may be that we'll never know exactly what happened, and he will have to live with the consequences now for things that he didn't live with the consequences back then, but he's paying for now. We'll see.
Absolutely. Cindy Goddard, it's not his job, but publicly he can be ruined by allegations. That's for sure. And we are saying that. Yeah. Jakey 5, yes, but if he's innocent, he'll be ruined anyway. Criminy, report violent crime when it occurs. Look, even in the cases brought against Harvey Weinstein, many of them were older cases. And I think it was the intimidation factor that he had over the women that he raped, and they were afraid to come forward because of his power and the fact that no one believed him. In fact, one of the cases went to the Manhattan DA's office, and they wouldn't go forward with the case. And after the whole article came out by Ronan Farrow. They did a total about face. And I think it was embarrassing for the district attorney at the time, who was Cyrus Vance. And that was the power that Harvey Weinstein had even within New York City. He was a big contributor to certain things, gave a lot of money away. So do you think that has an effect on things? You bet it did, you know? So I understand, and even though England isn't the US, it's similar systems. Ann Pierce, a trial by public opinion. Let's hope not, you know. Let's hope that it's not a trial by public opinion, because that's the worst thing you could have. Angel D, he was allowed to, and he was enabled and entitled. So I don't think Russel Brand believes he did anything wrong. Yeah, I think I read that before. I hope Fire Opal. I hope his wife and kids aren't being hounded by the media. Yeah, I think you're right. Let me play a little bit of this here.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Russel Brand! Hello there!
Never yield the sex appeal, Jim, never! There's always opportunities, there's always flies to be caught.
I'm a good role model for a child. From TV host and comedian to author and Hollywood actor, Russel Brand has had quite the career.
I can pretend to be nice for a little bit of time, you know, at the beginning of a relationship, right? Pretending to be nice. Yeah, no, it's all right, we can just cuddle. No, we'll just kiss a bit, that's all right. No, I'm not even that interested in sex. Where'd you come? I'll just kiss. Yeah, just watch Wonderful Life on the video. The knobstacle course, I call that.
He publicly battled drug and sex addiction and was known for his provocative humour and over-the-top persona.
Because you took your eye off the road, because things was getting a bit fruity out there. All right, Liz, goodbye. Yeah, thank you. Well, it's been really a wonderful experience. How can I do your bra? Just like this. Liz, I love you.
He can keep pushing and being more and more extreme, and nobody questions it because it just is, well, that's who he is. That's what he does. That's just Russell.
He was once a darling of the left.
You know, probably I don't agree with, apart from my admiration of firefighters, much that Russell probably
Pay their pensions then, love.
Well, we can come to that.
Excuse the sexist language, I'm working on that.
But in recent years, Brand morphed into a YouTube conspiracy theorist and wellness guru, celebrated by the alt-right.
The rubric is falling apart. The paradigm is collapsing. The aliens are coming.
Now, in a joint investigation by the Sunday Times and Channel 4, he's been accused of being a predator, a man who allegedly used his fame to manipulate and sexually assault young women.
July 1st, 2012 was when my rape happened. I was very distraught, trying to get out of the house with him being so much taller than me, like holding me up against the wall.
The two stories that probably have cut through the strongest are the stories of Alice, who was 16 when she had a relationship with Brand, and she accused him of emotional abuse and controlling behavior and sexual assault. And Nadia, a woman who had a relationship with him in LA when he was out there in Hollywood films in 2012. And she alleges that he raped her in his home.
Rosamund Irwin started investigating Brand 4 years ago, after hearing other comedians make allegations about him in their stand-up routines. She says the women who went on the record to the Sunday Times are incredibly brave.
It's not just going against somebody with some forms of power, it's going against somebody who's got a huge amount of power, actually, and a huge online following.
Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Now, this isn't the usual type of video we make on this channel where we critique.
Before the story was published, Russel Brand denied the allegations in a video statement.
Amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute. During that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual.
Rosamund Irwin says the Sunday Times team gathered exhaustive evidence about all the alleged victims, including Nadia.
She had text messages between him and her where they're talking about what appears to be the assault. She had medical evidence. She went to the Rape Crisis Centre the next day. She allowed us to see her therapist's notes, which is obviously a very intrusive thing. but she was willing to share those.
Brand has since been dropped by his agent, his live tour has been cancelled, and London police have announced they're looking into another allegation of sexual assault. The BBC has launched its own investigation into what it knew when Brand was one of its stars between 2006 and 2008. One of his accusers claims she was driven from school to the actor's house in a BBC car when she was 16 and he was 30.
They have massive questions to answer. And also, this is in a context of a TV industry that claims it has cleaned up its act. That, you know, so much of talk about safeguarding and looking after people. And the reality is that actually, you know, what is indulged and allowed to happen is still quite extraordinary.
Performers on the British comedy circuit say concerns about Brand's behaviour were widespread.
One thing that, you know, women in any industry do when they get together is they talk about, you know, which guys should you avoid and which guys have you had problems with. And, you know, there are various names that come up regularly and his is absolutely one of them.
Kate Smurthwaite worked with Russel Brand. She says predatory behaviour is common in the industry.
There were a lot of women in comedy who were really hoping that something like this would happen. And I think there are, and, you know, myself included, there are a lot of women in comedy who are kind of going, oh, great that you did this, but could we please not stop at Russel Brand? Could we please expand this out and look around the industry at other performers who maybe are less famous?
It's likely the Sunday Times will have more revelations about Russel Brand's behaviour.
We've had a huge reaction in a way that I've never seen on any story I've done before. And among those are women making fresh allegations, people that we didn't ever speak to, that we didn't ever find or we didn't know existed, frankly. And obviously we have to scrutinise those in the exact same way.
You got a tissue, where would you like to put it? Can I help you with that?
Should I explain what's on it before I give it to you?
Russel Brand has toured Australia many times.
Yes.
Are there any leads that have come to you about women who may have been abused in Australia?
Yes, and actually long before this story came out, there was a lead I was actually chasing quite hard in Australia and couldn't get anywhere with. But again, we'll have to do the exact same work.
Well, folks, I think that you have to decide whether this is a hit job or whether these allegations are founded. And we said early on in this show, if these allegations are founded, then they belong in the venue of the police doing this investigation, not journalists. And again, we said, and I'll repeat it sort of ad nauseum, is that journalists can shine a light on these things and more or less force law enforcement to get involved and to do a proper and thorough investigation and see if, in fact, sometimes you can have people come forward and the case is unprosecutable. And I know no one wants to hear that, but a case can be a district attorney or in England, a prosecutor could simply say, look, I have no doubt this happened, but I can't prosecute this. It's not prosecutable. Mike, your thoughts?
But yeah, Billy, especially in a case like this, which is dates from way back, you know, what the police believe actually happened, what a prosecutor believed actually happened is different from what a prosecutor can prove in court. If the prosecutor doesn't believe that they have enough evidence to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, they may not pursue the top charge, or they may even drop it down to a lesser charge. And I think people need to be prepared for that and to understand it. Yeah, absolutely. The people who have come forward to the BBC, they need to be supported. They need to have help. They need to be encouraged. And if it's necessary, have their hand held and go to the police. I encourage them to go to the police. That's what I would say for someone in my family. Go to the police. You have to do that, or else you're not going to get anywhere but just this publicity against him. And that may ruin him. But if what you say actually happened and we can prove it, he will be punished more so accordingly. And that would be proper in this case. but it needs to be done with the police and the prosecutor. And I think everybody should realize that these cases are difficult to prosecute. Absolutely.
100%. Folks, if you're looking for a great attorney in the New York City metropolitan area, then Joe Murray is your man. Joe's a retired NYPD member of the service, a retired police officer turned attorney, and you can reach Joe on his cell phone at 718-514-3855 or email him at joe@jmurray-law.com or go on his website, jmurray-law.com. Joe is also a huge supporter of the Police Off the Cuff podcast. Folks, you know, it seems like many of us in the chat, I see many a split between believing that this is a hit job on Russel Brand and believing that these allegations are 100% true. So what I would say to that, and what I've been saying throughout this whole show, is that if they're true, let's bring it forward to the police and let's do a proper investigation. Let's not allow journalists to destroy someone when they are not the arm of the government that prosecutes people. And I see that choosy heretic, choose carnation rebel, consciously stay abreast of the Inquisition and remain worthy of rescue. No one you need even hatch to get hurt for a peaceful legal solution. And it's the only thing proven in history to work. Choosy heretics, you actually have a brain. You got to get rid of that picture. Seeing that picture, I'm like, oh, I don't know who this guy is. But no, that's actually true. Legal-minded friends. Karen Cole, let the justice system do, then the media can cover it. Let the justice system do justice, and let the media can shine their light on it, but the media can also destroy people without giving them any type of due process. I want to play a little bit more of the online safety. This is what Andy the Gabby Cabby talked about. And this is one of the things we must all fear on both sides of the pond.
Among the public. But the thing about sort of, combating things that are bad, like I said, child pornography, extreme violence, terrorism and things like that, or take, for example, stuff like children seeing suicidal content, which is a kind of dark new feature of the modern world. And obviously there was the case of Molly Russell and, kids seeing some pretty bad stuff. The idea that that is going to be that sort of trend in society of children being able to see things that are age inappropriate, whether it's porn or these kind of violent things, is one, the responsibility of tech firms, or two, to be solved by trying to get tech firms to clamp down on us. Completely misunderstands the fact that this is a cultural problem.
Yes.
That it's the duty of, we have to ask about what parents are doing, what kind of people are talking about in their peer groups. It's a cultural issue.
Yes.
It's a cultural political issue, not a technical one that can be fixed by a bill that forces tech companies to intervene into our private lives.
And there are two things to consider in terms of who is going to be responsible for the censorship. So on the one hand, outsourcing it to Ofcom or some unregulated regulator who hasn't been elected. Now, of course, we know that these bodies are often ideologically captured. They tend to have a particular view of the world. If you give them that kind of power, isn't it open to exploitation?
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, in the question of Ofcom, there is, they've made some, I'd say, pretty dodgy decisions in the past, certainly politically loaded ones. We know that there was an issue around links to Stonewall or the way in which it treated gender critical content in the past. But also there is this row over encryption. So whether or not Ofcom can essentially give platforms notice to say that they have to mine their content to prevent things that are illegal, terrorism, child pornography. But breaking encryption and enforcing, say, for example, WhatsApp is forced to read its users' messages. Anyone can make the argument and say, well, wouldn't you want that if it just saves one person from viewing child pornography? You can do that zero-sum game of say, it has to happen, we have to sacrifice this. And I think we forget all of the benefits and all of the pros of privacy encryption, whether that be sort of political activism, private lives, privacy in terms of our ability to differentiate our public and our public lives and our lives at home.
Yes.
You know, and I think we forget we sort of almost throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is that these big fearful things are used to clamp down on freedom that actually is necessary for so much of our lives. And, you know, the online safety bill has been framed in terms of being about protecting kids, which who's going to sit here and argue that kids shouldn't be protected?
Right.
But in actual fact, when you scroll down the gov.uk website, you see that actually most of it is about adults, and most of it is about saying sort of adults will be able to ask big tech to filter out hate for them. What the hell?
What does that mean, though? Exactly, yeah.
And you know but it's actually, the bill infantilizes us. It
Yes.
treats the whole of society like we're children, and the internet is not primarily a children's space.
Yes.
It isn't. It's meant to be an adult space.
What about this idea? We have tested what happens when big tech are given the power to censor. We've seen since the release of the Twitter files that the staff at Silicon Valley were very much censoring opinions they didn't agree with that were perfectly legal, and they were doing it routinely and sometimes at the behest of government officials. Right, so that's what happens when you give big tech the power to do this. So surely we should have learnt our lesson by now.
It's this idea that sort of everyone who's involved in Twitter or YouTube, or, you know, sat in the lovely offices in Google and stuff like that, are sort of a perfect example of the you know, public, a demographic representative that sort of has left and right and everything in between, and they all sit around in their editorials when they decide what to censor and say, well, hang on a minute, you know, Andrew has been, you know, very fair in his opinions, and let's leave him be. That's nonsense.
You know, I just wanted to play a little bit of that. It's exactly the same, of course, in our country, and the censorship is just really disturbing. And I think that it's good. Look, how about when AI is fully in effect?
Right.
Think of the power of censorship when artificial intelligence is fully up and running. And artificial intelligence can be a good thing, but many people are scared to the bejesus of artificial intelligence. And you can understand why when you watch some of this stuff about censorship. Well, Mike, we've been on for a while. I think we covered this story pretty well. I want to thank Andy the Gabby Cabby, who just said it's worrying where they will go with this. Andy, you're 100% right. Andy, I'm so glad you're doing so well with your show. Andy has his own podcast. If you guys aren't subscribed to Andy the Gabby Cabby, go and subscribe to Andy's show. Fantastic show. We're going to keep you apprised. We're going to stay with this case and bring it to you. Any new happenings, we'll see where this goes. As I said, we mentioned 3 cases in our country. Of course, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, and the most recent one, Danny Masterson, where he was sentenced to 25 or 30 to life. So there are ramifications for these things. Mike, your final words.
Final words, Bill. I just want to remind people that an accusation is not proof. Even if the accusation seems to be very credible, it is not proof, and a person cannot be criminally punished without being officially charged and found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by a jury of their peers. So I would encourage, and in any way, shape, or form, always encourage a person who is claiming that they've been sexually assaulted or raped. Absolutely, they need all the support, but they also need to go to the police and to make their case to the police and have it properly investigated. And if in fact the police believe the allegations and the prosecutor actually has enough to go to court, then Mr. Brand will suffer the consequences of those actions years ago. And we call that justice. And we hope that there's going to be justice for everyone concerned, both Mr. Brand and for the people who are alleging that they've been sexually assaulted. That's all we're looking for, is a proper forum to determine what happened and what punishment, if any, is going to be meted out.
100%. Folks, I forgot to mention tomorrow night, Monday, October 2nd at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm on the TV show People Magazine Investigates on Investigation Discovery, and I'll be talking about the Gilgo Beach serial killer case. They interviewed me for over 4 hours. Let's see how much FaceTime I get on that show. Anyway, I'll be on at 9 o'clock. Thank you, folks, for tuning in tonight. Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. Have a great night, everyone, and God bless.
Good night.
soul just ain't enough.